Okay.
Okay, now starting recording. Okay.
Right. Okay. So I'll start with my own experience of the importance of physical literacy. So when I was at school, I didn't do particularly well, but I did well enough to go to a PE college. But there were two tiers there, the honours or the B.Ed, the degree, and then there was the certificate. And they put me with the certificate because I didn't get very good grades. And because they thought the certificate people weren't as intelligent as the degree people, what they did was, for the degree, they did a lot of theory. But for the certificate people, we did 3 hours theory in the morning, and then all afternoon it was different sports and evening. So basically 6 days a week we were doing different sports. So like all afternoon and nearly all Saturday I'd be doing all of these different things. So we're doing gymnastics and dance and swimming and games and everything. So what happened at the end of the year was suddenly I started to get really good results.
Okay.
So I was in their kind of dunce group, and then I got these really good results, and they said, "You're doing so well, we're actually going to move you into the degree."
Oh, okay.
So they put me into the degree. By the time I left, I was their top, one of their top student, 1% of a first class degree.
Wow.
So what had changed in that year was all the physical literacy had been developed.
Yeah.
But what happened as soon as I qualified as a PE teacher was I had a car accident in the Sahara Desert and broke my neck and back. So I couldn't teach PE, and I ended up teaching primary school from 7 till 11. And I didn't really know how to teach reading that well because I hadn't trained to teach reading. So, like all human beings, we do what we're good at. I was very good at doing PE. So I did loads and loads of PE with them.
Yeah.
Eventually, after 16 years of teaching in different schools, I came to a school where there were 5 parallel classes. And the head teacher said to me, "What is it that you do with your children, because your children can always read," because she was comparing them across the board.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what is it that I do? Because I don't really know how to teach reading that well. And then I had done a little bit of research at the time. The brain gym was very high up. And I thought, but then what I found with brain gym was some of the children that were finding it difficult were finding it difficult doing that. So I thought, there's something else underneath that.
Yep.
But so I thought, I wonder if it's movement. I wonder if movement is the defining thing. And I ended up doing a pilot study. I was looking actually at nutrition and movement. If the two there was a class having just movement, class having nutrition, class doing both, and a comparable class, a pilot study. And I found that actually that what made the most impact was movement.
Yeah.
And then in parallel to this, my own son, who was 15 and a half, was struggling, and he obviously had retained reflexes, which I didn't know about then, except he was fidgeting all the time. He was not paying attention. He was doing really not good at school. And then he had an accident where a bus ran over his foot. And so it kind of, I sat up with that because I realized that whatever was going on was like a life and death thing, because he wasn't paying attention, his perception was not correct. And I happened to be on a course, and I was sitting next to somebody who was working with retained reflexes, using kinesiology and doing the exercises, and looking at auditory processing as well, sorting that out. And 3 months of work with her, with my son, he was like a different person.
Wow.
Completely different. So the school report went after 3 months. It said something like, now that he's decided to start working, now he's not sitting next to time wasters. And so he went from B's and C's to A's. And eventually he did so well, his behaviour improved, everything improved. He did so well that he was interviewed at Oxford, and he has now got a PhD.
Nice.
So the mother wanting to found. So I had my own son, I'd
Yeah.
had my own experience, and had this child in my class who was really struggling to put the output on paper, finding it really hard, very intelligent. And because of these three parallel situations, I ended up doing a PhD to see, does movement really help children with their performance and their learning?
Yeah.
Because I was teaching in a class with school with 5 parallel classes.
Yeah.
So it was a great platform to do the research, because I had all the outer circumstances were all the same. It wasn't like I was comparing school to school.
Yeah.
They were all coming from a similar background into a similar school with not just one teacher. We were rotating them around teaching. So everything was similar. So what I did was, one class did a movement program, and that was the movement program that I developed myself, called a simple sensory integration movement program for learning enhancement. One class did a sound therapy, because auditory processing is very, very important, and
Yeah.
very much linked in with balance.
Yeah.
And balance is very much linked in with the eyes and how children read and dyslexia and all of that. And then one class did the sound therapy and the movement, and one class did nothing. And my hypothesis was that the ones that were doing the two things together would do the best. But in fact, it was the movement that was really made the significant difference. I think the two things together was too much for the body. And we did this experiment over a period of 8 months. So the primitive reflexes were being integrated using very specific movements, a program that was developed specifically for a school. So it looked like we were covering all the elements of a school, but also doing the therapeutic work underneath that. And the children thought they were just doing a PE
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
But in addition, what we did was bilateral integration. We added that in, very, very important.
Yeah.
And so yes, it was all the circumstances that I got interested in the research work. And looking at what I wanted to do really was to leave a legacy in like education, and say, look, we're not allowing our children to move enough,
Yeah.
and that movement is the fundamental. It's fundamental. It's not the top of the pyramid is actually the reading and the writing, but below that is physical literacy.
Yeah.
Physical literacy impacts literacy. And it's like building a house on a foundation that's not steady. So the walls are going to move around. It's not steady. Go down and look at the underlying problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's what I educate my parents and therapists as well. It's like the foundation, go back to the foundation. Kind of similar to your story. I think I got into it as a therapist and trying to figure out how come my kids are, I call my kids, but my clients are not able to learn the simple skills. Why is it taking them forever to learn what we consider basic skills for kids?
Yeah.
Like, why do I have to see a kid an hour each week to teach them how to kick a ball, or like simple tasks that now I'm missing something? It's just repeating the same skill over and over is frustrating the kid. We're not getting anywhere. I think that's what got me to dive deeper and figure out what is the brain to body connection that this kid is missing, right? And definitely being a parent changes you too, right? So our research gets even deeper because we observe our kids day in and day out. So that helped in and as well in writing these books and making it more accessible for teachers and parents. So in your research, while you're working, while you're doing the research, were there any specific reflexes that you targeted? I know, like, is there the ATNR, the moral, which reflexes you target?
No, it was very hard to actually work with the Moro.
Yeah.
Couldn't really target the Moro, but I found that ATNR and STNR and TLR are the most important in the classroom.
Yeah.
So they were targeted within the therapeutic exercises that were happening within the PE programs. It was like circuit training.
Mhm.
And so like doing lots of crawling activities to target the STNR, and doing lots of rolling, jumping on trampolines, and to sort out balance, but also to look at TLR, all of those. So those three mainly. But but there were children who were had other stuff. But also looking at bilateral integration was really important, because what I found at the end of the research was this, and it was in particular, I had a set of twins in my class.
Okay.
One of the twins really loved doing bilateral integration exercises, like simple planning, move your arm, move your leg, move the other arm, now reverse it, together, opposite, and things like that. The other twin wasn't so keen. And by the end of it, we found that the twin who was really able to sequence his body also did really well with his maths.
Yeah.
So if you think of it, so it was a physical sequencing, which had an impact on abstract sequencings like your timetables. I mean, that is an abstract sequence.
Yeah.
But if you're able to do the physical sequence, so we did bilateral integration as well. So that's more general. And looking at postural reflexes, because there are some specific reflexes that you need to do very specific exercises to really, kind of pinpoint those.
Yeah. Which reflex did you find harder to work with kids? Did you find one reflex in a school setting?
In the school setting, I found that the ATNR is the one that impacted so much. In terms of, well, obviously the first one is handwriting, isn't it? A child who's struggling to put anything down on paper, that's nearly half of his struggle in school,
Yeah. Well, from my experience, I work with the posture before I even get to the fine motor. I like this how the houses you're talking about, like the foundation, like we need to first integrate the ATNR well, where I rather spend more time working on the ATNR, the posture, the upper body control, shoulder control and strength, than the fine motor.
Yes.
Usually we focus the other way around and makes it harder. We expect them to do the fine motor while the body is not coordinated and strong enough even to sit down, and they're fidgeting. If they're fidgeting, the fine motor is going to be affected, right? So we work from the bottom up.
Well, the fidgeting is very, very interesting. So the fidgeting is all linked into their balance, because the highest form of balance is stillness. Anybody who's fidgeting is trying to be balanced. So if you think of a tightrope walker, they have to go around like that to keep their balance. So anybody who's moving around is trying to maintain balance.
Yeah.
But if they've got really good balance, then they're able to be still.
Yeah.
So balance is absolutely vital. Most dyslexic children have very poor balance. So when I did my research, I had a very 4 or 5 different little tests that you can just quickly screen a child. One is simply asking them to stand on one foot. And after the age of 7, they should be able to maintain that from 12 to 15 seconds. So that the ability to stand on one foot and balance is so important for reading, that I can go into a classroom, ask the children to stand on one foot, and tell you which are the good readers and which are the not. Because what happens is, even when the space astronauts go up into space and they lose their sense of balance, then they have something called space dyslexia. So when they come back to land, one of the things that they have to work on is their balance, and then this space dyslexia, which mirrors dyslexia, goes away. And in fact, there was a guy in England who found that was happening. So his daughter was dyslexic. So there we go, child.
Mm-hmm.
So what he did was he bought this machine and started getting children to maintain their balance, sort out their balance. What he was doing was then equipping the body to be able to do the reading, because if your balance isn't correct, the way your head sits on the body isn't correct, the way your eyes are working in the body aren't correct, it's like a moving camera, then you're not able to do the normal tracking and all of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things is when a child goes to school, nobody says, can you track?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody says that. Nobody
Yeah.
looks at the track. It's simple. How hard is it to get pencil as they do this, you know? How are the eyes working, or what are you actually seeing on paper? So if there's a screening at age, say, 5 to 6, that you can pinpoint certain things. But I mean, you know, it's so easy to sort out balance. It's rolling and tumbling and sliding and swinging, normal activities, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's normal. It's definitely normal, natural progression. I know both my kids, we send them to vision therapy. So we work really closely with vision therapists. And the one of the misconception or I guess understanding is like, just because the child has 20/20 vision, they get screened.
Yes.
I was like, oh, he's fine or she's fine. But yes, tracking, that's one of, even in my second book in the ATNR, we have like the tracking, like having
Yeah.
track. And then it's quite interesting to see the kids, you will assume that they're doing well. The hyperactive kids, the ADHD kids, especially, because they're climbing, they're running around. So you assume, oh, he's fine, she's fine. But when you stop them, we do the balance. Even in the book, there is like having them balance for a letter, like for 5 seconds, they can't do it. Or tracking is the hardest one. And like
Yeah.
you said, we work with my own kids who work with vision, and just that, even passing the midline.
Yeah.
That's why we see like the eyes
Yeah.
jumping and fatigue, not even being able to manage to fixate, because that's the
Yeah.
first thing that they need to do is fixate, right? So not being able to do that for even 2 seconds is quite
Yeah.
yeah.
Fixate, saccade, you know, track. Nobody's really checking the mechanism of what is happening. And why I wanted to end up doing those research and do it at PhD level was I wanted the government to look at it and just screen the children and
Yeah.
really ask the question, do they have the mechanics for learning to read
Yeah.
or write?
Yeah.
Simple screening when they come in, then a simple program, run it in schools. Because what happened with my own son was when I was trying to integrate his reflexes, I had to get him to do the exercises and
Yeah.
and I thought to myself, you know what? When I'm in the class, all the children listen to me. But when I'm at home, he's not listening to me. So it's so easy in school. So I just started, I mean, I'll tell you one story because it's not just about the academic ability.
Mm-hmm.
There was a boy in my class who was 11. This was after the research, and there was a bridge where the cars were going on it. So it's not a rocky bridge; it's a proper road bridge. But the father had to walk the boy across the bridge.
Mm.
And I found this out, and I thought to myself, his balance is poor.
Yeah.
He's afraid to go over the bridge. And I thought to myself, next year he's going to go to high school.
Mm.
And he can't have his father walking him to school. He'll get bullied, because, anyway, all I did with him was I noticed that he didn't like climbing up on high boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously his balance was that. So I did lots and lots of activities. When we were doing PE, I target him and make sure he was doing lots of activities and started to just get him to jump off the box and get more confident off the box. And suddenly his fear of walking across the bridge left him. I mean, how simple is that?
Yeah.
And how profound actually, and what a difference it made
Yeah.
to him. And then there was another boy, he was Asperger's, but he couldn't balance,
Mm-hmm.
so he couldn't ride a bicycle.
Mm.
He didn't have many friends, so when he came home from school, and this was when I was working as a therapist, when he came home from school, he couldn't go out and play with the children because they were all riding the bicycles. So I said to him, do you like bike riding? No. Obviously, we never like anything we can't do.
That's true.
We worked with the balance, and within a week, actually, now a week, he started riding the bike with the kids. Now he's got somebody to socialize with. It's not just about the riding the bike. Is now his whole social life has changed. What I found though, it takes a long time when you just trying to integrate with movement, but using kinesiology, that can be really, really sped up. So once I'd done the research, I couldn't really stay in school because I knew what was the important parts. I opened up a center called the Child Center, started working with children to integrate their reflexes. But eventually what I've done is develop a movement program, so integrating the reflexes using kinesiology and energy medicine all together, which means you can integrate these reflexes much quicker. And so I train therapists now, and it's called the Child Center method. But it's the focus of it is the reflexes.
Yep.
And how they actually mimic sometimes something else. So when I was working in the center, a boy came to me who they said had Asperger's. And he was getting thrown out of school. He wasn't doing very well. He was now 12 and a half. I worked with him for a long period. I think it was about 8 months. But at the end of it, when they tried to re-diagnose him with Asperger's, they couldn't. And because he integrated all his reflex, the hardest thing to integrate with him was the ATNR, which shows you the impact that ATNR could have. So it wasn't just that his head wasn't separate from his arm, but he couldn't actually move his eyes separately from his head at all. And you know that when you move your head like that and try and read, that makes you feel sick.
Yeah.
Why would this child want to read? It took a while, but he didn't have the ability to independently move his eyes from his head and then independently move his head from his arm.
Yeah. No, the ATNR it's powerful. It took me a long time to write that book. My illustrator was mad at me for a long time. I keep adding because it's
very important.
It's very important because it's not only the vision, you're also affecting auditory, right? So it's not only the auditory, you also have the motor aspect of it, the upper body and lower body, and it's just all connected.
Midline.
The line crossing, and we definitely see that. I wanted to know, you said you use energy medicine. Is that what you said? You said
yes. Yeah.
That's
kinesiology. So what we do is muscle testing.
I see.
And so you can sometimes the reflexes the stress can come at a younger age. So muscle testing can actually identify when the stress was there. So if you go to the point of stress and de-stress there, and then you give the exercises, within 1 or 2 weeks, you can actually integrate the reflex.
That's interesting.
1 or 2 weeks. Yeah. So my own son,
exercises after you test them.
No, you test them first. You release the stress
got it. Okay.
Using energy medicine. So there are certain points, like the acupressure point. Like there's two points here that are stress points, okay? And we see these, when people are stressed, they'll say, "Oh my God," or when they're trying to think, they'll say, "Oh, or when your child is not well, you see you do this, because actually on there are 2 stress points. And if you think of something really, really, say, scary or awful, and just hold these points here, it can completely change, because that comes from the stomach meridian. And the Chinese have known about the meridians and the acupressure points forever.
Yeah.
So in this child-centered method, you're using those kind of points to release the stress at the point of stress. And then because you've initiated the release of the stress, then you do the integrative exercise, and 2 to 3 weeks, you can sort them out. because I'd seen my sons sorted out from 0 to 3 months. In 3 months, everything integrated. It
Wow.
was amazing. And because kinesiology was used and energy medicine was used, combination of things,
Yeah.
a package.
Yeah, you definitely have to. Yeah, I recommend to do multiple different tools. The one I'm familiar with is the MNRI method. I don't know if
Yes.
you're familiar with her.
Yeah.
She's brilliant and taken several of her courses and at
Yes.
camps. And she has one with the facial integration that she used. Do a lot of facial work. Sometimes I do it with my kids as well.
Yeah.
I don't know how that one is related to what you're doing, the energy.
Well, so I have different modules. So initially we start with the first 2 modules are looking at primitive reflexes, postural reflexes. You're looking at how you use the exercise. And then we start getting into muscle testing. And then I think it's module, when we come to module 7 is just about working on the eyes. Like the whole of that module is looking and doing all the work around the eyes so that at the end of it they can track and saccade and converge and good binocular fusion and diverge and all of those things. And then we look at how each of those, so for example, convergence is linked in with the motor reflex, how each of those is linked in. So the TLR has one of the eye movement linked in, the STNR, the ATNR, and the motor reflex. So if you've got that's why you need to kind of do the integrative work with the reflexes, then go and work on the eyes. Can't do it the other way around, the eyes are like the last, but so there is a whole module working on the eyes to sort that out.
That's great. That's great. That's really great. So right now, where are you located?
I am in West Yorkshire in England.
Oh, okay. So do you see people online, or do you do it?
I am so busy teaching the child center method now online that I'm kind of really busy with that. I've got lots of practitioners, then I just refer the children to them one-to-one. So I'm teaching online now at the moment, well, obviously because of COVID. I do see particularly difficult cases like autistic and Asperger's and cases like that. But really my passion is trying to, you see, the child center method is using science and movement and energy medicine all together as a therapy to speed everything up. So so I'm located here. So like now for me, it's, what time is it? Nearly 7 o'clock at night. It's weird.
I know. It's one of the pluses and minuses of COVID, right? So now we get to interact with everybody.
I was trying to teach some people in Australia, and it was like a different time zone. And then I was on a course myself recently, and it started at 3 my time and finished at midnight. And so by about 11 or 10, 11, 12, I was like really sleepy, but we had to keep the camera on the whole time. That's the problem with, but I've been training occupational therapists actually in South Africa. Now I love that. Do you know why? Time zone. We're nearly the same time zone. England and South Africa are nearly the same time zone.
Oh, that's great.
So it's great that. And then Ireland, I'm training teachers actually, to use these exercises, and because I've developed a special program for 3 to 5 year olds. Simple Stars is called. It's not a specific on the reflexes. It's before they get to that. It's trying to integrate them even younger, trying to make sure they've got all those movements. So Ireland is all right, but if it's America, somebody actually signed up to do the child center method from America, and she'd got it completely wrong.
The time zone?
The time zone. She thought it was 3 p.m. her time, but it was 3 a.m.
Oh, no.
It was funny.
Yeah. We'll see.
But it's great that we can connect like this and share things and get it out to everybody. That's the most important thing. And as I was saying earlier, I've been contacted from Germany for these diseases and kind of conference, lifestyle and diseases conference. And I thought, what do they want with me? Do they realize I'm not a medical doctor? And they're actually really interested in finding out about movement and physical literacy and primitive reflexes. Because yes, if they're couch potatoes and they're not moving around, it's going to cause diseases, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see, the thing is, children innately love the joy of movement.
Yeah.
And they don't like sitting on the couch and just watching things, because it brings joy to run and to play. If they're just very much like that and not liking it, then they definitely have the reflexes.
Yeah.
And we integrate them, we give them joy. We're not just giving them better learning or better attention, but joy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, this is exciting. I think I'm definitely lucky and starting this, even with this group and Facebook and I'm meeting so many people around the world who's doing this work in different ways and training, and more and more people are finding out about it. Parents are finding out about it, so that's great. Some people, they're joining the even as early as the first assessment. Like, it's rare that parents are told in their first assessment, oh, we need to integrate reflexes. Usually I found out a few years in my OT career, right? So that's been exciting. And I'm meeting you too. And let me know how we can cooperate with you, work with you.
Yeah,
And
I'd love to.
yeah, so we have a couple of the books are out, and few books are coming out too, and the STNR will be out.
Brilliant.
And the Moro and the ATNR books are out. We have an online companion program for service providers too that we're doing. We're focusing first with parents, but we found that it's just too much for parents to retain all the information just online and do themselves.
Yes.
So I am slowly moved away from the parents and focusing with the service providers instead, especially those who are starting their business. They want coaching, you want support. So I go in online and just help them with that and putting those treatment plans together. So so if you want,
one of the things I have done is, so I have the child centered method work, but I have something called simple physical literacy. And the program that I used in the research, we've translated it in a little guy called Lali, in a cartoon character, so parents can buy the home program or schools can buy the school program, and everything is done on screen so that children can just follow. It's like trying to get it's hard work with the parent always trying to do it with the child, but when they see the cartoon character, they want to copy because of that. So
making it fun for them.
Yeah. And I mean, actually, COVID has been a great time to really just get outside and really get them moving, and because it's just the normal childhood activities that integrate the reflexes.
Yeah.
So they need more and more of that, really.
Yeah. Some places was harder because even parks were closed around here. So
Really?
so we couldn't access any parks.
Wow.
Anywhere. So all the movements or activities has to be in your own home. And if you don't have a backyard, you really have to be creative.
Or if you're in a flat. No, at all times, our parks were never closed.
Yeah.
Here,
I mean,
parks were always allowed to go out, and they were always open. And I mean, we're kind of in a tight lockdown now, but we were all. You see, the thing with physical literacy, it's from cradle to grave.
Yeah.
And we're talking about children, but our ability to balance is crucial as we get older and older and older. And what they're beginning to find is that for good cognitive function, that the most important thing is to maintain balance, because as we get older we begin to lose our balance, so we have to work at maintaining balance. And if they're now beginning to get where people are older, old people's homes and older generation, they're trying to get them to do lots of activities, a little bit like just maintaining it. And what they've found is the salsa dancing
Really?
is the
Really?
most.
That
Yeah. Do you know why? Because you're doing this forwards, backwards, normal, like forwards, backwards, forward, backwards is the pattern. It's a pattern. It's a pattern. You're then using your arms, and then you're doing loads of turning. So you're maintaining your balance. So the ability to maintain your balance affects your cognitive functions. So physical literacy goes from cradle to grave. I myself am constantly maintaining my physical literacy. So I've taken up salsa,
oh,
like I'm in I say I'm in my third trimester. Zero to 30, 30 to 60, and I'm in my third trimester now. So I must maintain my cognitive functions and I'll take up salsa. But you
yeah.
can imagine what's happened with COVID. I mean,
Hard. What personally, now that we're talking about that, personally, what we're doing, what I found for me, when you said your back and your neck injury and changing your trajectory of your career, like I have a back and neck injury, and then that's why I reduced seeing clients personally and start
wow.
creating stuff. But what I found, the treatment that helped me the most, and I did so many different treatments for my back, was Pilates. And when I was working with Pilates, and I just love and to those who are working with,
Yeah.
especially with adults, and the way Pilates work, and my physical therapist was working with me, was using that, and they really isolate and almost integrate, in a sense, if you really know
Yes.
what they're doing, and muscles and memory and repetition and focus. There's breathing. There's so much that goes with it, and it helps me the most. And then I decided, okay, if it helps me, I'm gonna go get trained. So I did the entire certification training, and just to understand it. And I really see the correlation with the movement, and the movement that I do with reflex integration with exercises with the
Yeah.
kids. Even some of the exercise I put in the books, and the ones that are coming out was inspired by Pilates work, because
That is, yeah.
you can use that with your older kids,
Yeah.
and your teenagers, or even 10 and up, you can use it. And for adult too, I think I noticed this because I had friends coming in, and I have to practice with them, right, to know what I'm doing, but they're having a hard time moving their hips or isolating all that.
Yes.
But it's definitely interesting to see those are the people who have other issues like anxiety, who have like attention issues, visual perception. It's just quite
Yeah.
interesting to see that, and with adults, even though I was doing Pilates, but I have the knowledge
Yeah.
of reflex integration, and then I'm putting it together. I'm like, this totally makes sense,
Yeah. With my neck injury, because I broke two, I crushed D4 and my C6 and C7 were broken. For 10 years, I was in a lot of pain. I didn't have a operation because I also had a near-death experience as well at the same time, but I kind of knew I didn't want an operation. Kinesiology took away about 70% of the pain, and I know the power of kinesiology through what happened to me. That's why I've combined the science and the kinesiology. And so I was like 55 years old, and I was playing netball. I don't think you have netball. Netball is like, I think of basketball, but you can't move with the ball, so you find it very strange. I was playing netball at 55 years old at a really high standard. Think of, with the neck injury and all of that, because the kinesiology was amazing. What happens with the body is that the whole body has muscle memory,
Yeah.
but it also has memory. It has trauma memory.
Yeah.
So when you're doing muscle testing, you're interfacing with these memories wherever the memories are held, and then you can release the memories, and you have a huge impact on the body.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating.
It is.
You were saying about moving the body. So there's all that sacrocranial work.
Mm-hmm.
What they find is, if you say somebody has an accident or a trauma, that if you put the body in that place of the accident, the body can remember exactly that trauma, and then you release it while it's remembering the trauma. It's like wiping the slate clean. It's like bringing up the delete file and saying, right, we're deleting that. It's fascinating, isn't it?
I know. I can get lost. We can talk like all day with this
Oh
thing.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So one of the things you said that I really agree, and we're totally in the same length, is movement is key. And then
yes,
since the brain is, this is how I understand it, and make it basic and simple to understand, our brain is a sensory organ. And the best way, that's why I tell people, people I'll train, it's like the best way to get to the brain is through movement, right? So
yes,
it's a sensory organ, so it feels of everything that's happening. So with kids, the best way for me to get to their brain and know how even the right and the left brain working together is by having them move, and I can see it, like I can see.
yes.
So it's really, even when you're teaching parents or teachers and I have the kids move, it's like, okay, if this is so hard for him to do, imagine the abstract work.
Yes,
How
or
hard.
the fine motor skill work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think, yeah, this is great that what you're doing, hopefully, so I can't wait to continue to working together and
yeah.
collaborating. I look forward to that. Thank you so much for
And
coming
thank you.
on.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I found it fascinating, and
Yeah,
I love it. I love when I meet people who are really getting that work out,
yeah.
because we're getting 30%. When I first started teaching in 1980, I'd get one child in a class struggling.
Mm,
We're getting 30% of children that are struggling because they're not
they're
integrating
not.
their reflexes. So I
Yeah,
love meeting anybody who's out there, doing it. So
yeah,
brilliant. So
yeah.
thank you for your work and your books. I've got it on my bed.
Great, great. Yeah. So we're hoping till the third, or hopefully we get a couple of them out, and then the companion courses
Yeah.
out too. And what else are we having? I'm having a 5-day end of February, how to create a movement break using reflex integration training for a therapist, a service provider. We're going to do it in the group. So that's
Yeah.
something that hopefully
Brilliant.
we can teach. So yes, thank you so much for meeting with me.
Yeah.
And then,
Thank you.
are you okay with me sharing your
Yes.
research? Okay,
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
share you.
Oh, some people have written to me from the group, and I am trying to get out the PhD, but I've just my PA has just had a cataract.
Oh,
Not cataract, yeah, cataract. She's just had that, so I've just not had time to do it myself. So I have all those people who wrote to me from
nice.
that group. I
Yeah,
will get it out. Yeah. All
yeah.
right.
I said,
Thank
and
you
then
so
I'll
much.
post it in our group too. So whoever
Yeah.
wants to get it, they can just go in the file, download it. So since you
Yeah.
gave an okay to do that, great. Thank you so
Brilliant.
much, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, take care. Bye
Bye.
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 Bye bye.